Welcome to this powerful testimony. While some parts of the original recording may have minor spelling variations or phonetic spellings, we've kept them to preserve the authenticity of the message. Please focus on the profound experiences shared here, as they carry the true essence of this testimony. If you keep an open heart, you'll discover what God wants you to learn through these incredible stories. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay updated with new testimonies as they're posted. Demonic relationships. I had lived with the demons ever since I can remember. Some were my friends while others were my enemies. Demons never talked in terms of love. I personally did not think in those terms. I had a demonized heart, hard and very cold. The demons would torture and hurt me if I failed to obey them. Sometimes I would fear them while other times I felt safe with them. Many times, I experienced seeing demons leaving bruises, cuts, and bites inflicted on human bodies. I saw them throwing objects used to block the blessings of the rebellious people Satan called Christians rebellion people. Demons enjoy opening and closing doors and windows, hurling of books and stones, setting fires, projecting through the air, many other things. Often, I've witnessed them killing people and throwing human beings around. This is their mission, to kill, rob and destroy. The demons filled my dreams with their presence. They usually took me into other worlds and ethereally showed me things that are indescribable. Yes, the demons are undeniable. But now, I've come to know the reality of Jesus. However, the church needs to be aware not only of the demonic power that is motivating the physical world, but also the sovereign power of Jesus Christ that is over them. I believe that behind every activity in the world that is not of God is demonic. I can point to the invisible spirit that hides the demonic power. The Antichrist spirit is motivating this evil power. Anytime we sample the fashions of the world, and we come in contact with the demonic power behind it, we must be very careful when we fellowship with unbelievers in the world. Remember that the activities of the spirit of the world do not honor or promote God's kingdom. The truth of this statement can be seen in the industries of entertainment, banking, military, medicine, law, commerce, sports, business, and even in some counterfeit Christian churches. Many people in the entertainment industry will push sex, violence, witchcraft, and rebellion, etc. Then too, many counterfeit Christian churches advance a form of a false religion without Jesus Christ at the center of its activities. Jesus will remove his candlestick from any church that will not teach his word and will not keep him as preeminent in its life. They will lose his protection. Chapter 3, The Bushman. There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these things is an abomination unto the Lord, and because of these abominations the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee. Deuteronomy 18 verses 10 to 12. Tribal initiation. Was a young boy and the drums were beating furiously. The moon was full and the night animals were making their sounds. The village men lit their torches and were drinking potions. I had witnessed many tribal rituals, however, tonight it was different because I was the one who was going to be initiated. My mouth became dry as a cottonmouth snake. A shower of fear flooded every nerve cell of my body. I stood bravely by my father with my teeth clenched tightly together. I was being very careful not to show the explosions of panic inside. My father, Alariga, had his arm around my shoulder. His eyes were like steel. Yet, I could see the pride that mapped his face. Abruptly a short, stocky figure materialized, clothed in animal hides and furry pelts. He made a hand leap over a mound. Then, he held his head back and began to take deep breaths as though sniffing something in the air. I recognized the costume was the ancestral raiment of my father's Frafra tribal shaman. His face was totally hidden behind a painted bright yellow, blue-green carved African mask. As he twisted around, I could see his circled eyes, ruby-red mouth, and four multicolored strips on his cheeks. He had an elongated staff with tiny pieces of feathers attached by colorful strings, dangling stones, and dried grasses. African drums, music and dance were working together to celebrate our African traditions. Nevertheless, the tribal masks that were worn during harvest celebrations and rites of passage were intimidating to me. These masks are also used during dances for the birth of new babies, weddings, and funerals. These gruesome masks are conjured up by the witch doctors into hideous representations of demon gods. Really, the witch doctors are reproducing images that they have seen in their contact with evil spirits. The other men were wearing antelope horns, animal teeth, gourds, knives, iron bracelets, and leather pouches. Both sexes in Africa are often mutilated on the face or body as part of this all-pervasive charm cult. Mutilations, bizarre to Western eyes, take the form of scars, filing down of teeth, extending the lips or ears with discs or rings, and plugging the nostrils. I watched as the drumbeat, chants, and the waves of hands ensued. The African shaman slithered like a snake, then explosively forward while drums boomed a jungle beat with the rhythm of his feet. Gyrating to the sounds with the grace of a cat, he circled, examining me with black menacing eyes, the mask moving with his dance. He sang invoking the power of the gods. I had witnessed many animal and human sacrifices before this time, but this was a personal experience. Even so, my father had spiritually prepared me for this moment. Smiling, he stood proudly, with his arms around my shoulders. He knew that this was the beginning of my long spiritual journey into his world of witchcraft and supernatural power. As the witch doctor cavorted and chanted around the fire, I stood still, frozen with fear, but I dared not show it. I bit my upper lip as blood slid through my veins like needles when a goat was sacrificed. Its blood splattered everywhere. The knife still glistened with red drops of blood from the mutilated goat as I rubbed my tongue against the back of my mouth. Then, I was told to dip my finger into the blood and repeated the oath of the rites of passage. As he conjured his magic, the witch doctor danced, clapped, and chanted some more. Then he invited the gods to join him. He rubbed ritual oils and the goat's blood on my face. There were thousands of spirits cheering and watching when he took a sharp knife and slashed my cheeks with deep gashes. I flinched for a second with the pain, but I dared not show any reaction. I felt my warm blood running down my face. He thrust his finger into his witch's box and traced the freshly cut wound with a magical black powder. This was done to fortify and spiritually strengthen me. Then, I was given a staff with an emblem of my future spiritual authority and my grandfather's mask. Additionally, there was a large kettle boiling, filled with mystical portions and human flesh. A bloodthirsty demon was stalking the sacrifice. With that, I was commanded by the witch doctor to drink and eat. The human flesh and blood felt warm going down my throat. My blood was still flowing down my cheeks. Then the witch doctor packed up his gear and went off into the bush. It was quite an impressive ceremony for a young boy of 12. It took longer than usual for my gashes to heal because the scars did not heal well. They became infected and inflamed and drew armies of flies to attack the wound. This caused the scars to become broader on my cheeks. Today, they remain dark scars across my cheeks. I remember walking around the village, wearing the marks as a symbol of superiority. Everyone in the tribe encouraged me because of my birthright and my future status of power. Today the tribal black scars are still deeply etched upon my face. Thank God that Jesus can erase the spiritual significance of the marks in the spirit realms. The Holy Spirit has put a new mark on my face. He supernaturally placed his seal upon my forehead and I am now marked for heaven. Then he told me that visible scars on my face only serve to show the world of the testimony of my past. I thank Jesus that my sons do not have these demonic scars on their faces. It really happened, and the powers of those rituals are now blotted out forever. My name is blotted out of Satan's book of death and my name is listed in the Lamb's book of life, praises to his holy name forevermore. Investigation of the bush. My father, Alariga, was about to give his powers over to me. Normally, in Africa, we give everything we have to our next of kin, our firstborn son. The boy, even if he is the third child, is supposed to take over the father's place. My father wanted to relinquish his powers to me because he was about 60 or 65. At that time, he believed that he was going to die soon. He wanted to teach me certain things about his supernatural powers. My father was training me to take his spiritual mantle. He told me the introduction to the spirits from the sky and the land, bush, was very important to my future. These demons in the forest are called dwarfs. There are also the marine demons of the sea. In the beginning, he said, when the demons fell from the skies, they fell in the bushes, the mountains, the seas, and some fly in the skies. You can see these spiritual kingdoms described in the Bible, in Job 38 verses 31 and 33, Job 41 verse 22, Job 9 verse 9, Isaiah 23 verse 11. When my father told me about these demons, I was thunderstruck and I didn't know what to say. So, I said nothing. The night that we made a trip into the bush, it was about midnight. I learned that the powers of darkness always work in the night. We walked about 3 kilometers through the brush and bramble, deep into the forest. At the brow of the hill, we stopped and gazed across the green jungles of the northeast. It was a wild, rough land. Roving herds of wild elephants, pythons, and strange tribesmen hardly known to the outside world populated it. Father told me that I had to learn about all the demons of the bush. We had to have contact with those demons too, he assured me. They are very powerful. I clearly remember that night, when the moon hung in the sky like a giant opal casting light and shadows as we walked through the brush. A majestic elephant stood under the shadows of the trees, with his trunk proudly raised. This noble creature had caught my undivided attention for a moment. The elephant has long been the symbol of status and power. Suddenly my eyes caught a spiritual being that was shaped like a winged stallion flying across the sky. "Oh," I said, pointing excitedly. "Look at that wonderful horse. That is Pegasus, son. He is a white-winged horse that performs many amazing feats. He is the son of the god, Zeus. It is a rare thing to see this spiritual horse. It is a sign of your great future." Soon we came to the bush. In this part of the forest, I saw some of the most bizarre-looking demons. At first, I was startled at the grotesque appearance of these demons. As a matter of fact, in the beginning I really did not want to have anything to do with them. Except that my father told me, "Take care of the gods, and they will take care of you." I was truly struck with terror when I met all the bush spirits. They made quite an astonishing impression on me. These dwarfed spirits were really scary. They were in the form of dwarfs, monstrous-looking creatures. They stood bent over, hunchbacks with gnarled heads that protruded from scrunched shoulders. Some had flaming swords and warrior guardians of the high places. They looked strong, like brutal savages that visited people in nightmares. Intimidated, I held my father's hand tightly. The hair stood up at the nape of my neck as stark fear was sweeping over my body. Yet, they grinned at me through their large leathery jowls and jagged teeth. They didn't speak and didn't move, but with bulged eyes, they watched me with their cold, piercing gazes. My father taught me their secret ceremonies. I had to study their languages so that I could talk to the gods in their own languages and tongues. I had to learn the various gods' favorite foods and preferred drinks. For instance, one god could desire a rooster or goat for dinner and his favorite drink alcohol, while another demon god could desire human flesh and blood. My father warned me, "Son, don't be afraid. You have to go and make a covenant with them. You see, whenever they strike a person and if that person comes to you for help, you will have the power to help them. It's important, you will have to pacify these spirits so that you can work your supernatural powers for the people." He revealed to me that these spirits were not dependable. He went on to say, "Then the spirits will give that person a release for a year or two, then suddenly, they will strike that person again." These spirits do not like people. I discovered that demons are no man's friends. In practice, they really want to destroy all people. My father pointed out that there were many people who were targeted by these spirits for death. They used the witch doctors to conjure up incantations, potions, and blood sacrifices to kill their enemies. My father said, a witch or wizard has to be very careful when they throw a curse, and under what terms. He told me that knowledgeable witch doctors would always examine with caution or scan, called remote viewing, the person before sending a curse. He said, if the magic power of the intended victim is stronger than the witch or wizard of the curse believed it to be, or if the curse is not correctly cast, the curse will bounce back upon the person who threw it in the first place. Strange rituals. One night, we walked into the jungle. A ghostly mist hung among the trees. The grey moon darted between the hills. We could hardly see where we walked. My father seemed to know the area like the back of his hand. Strange feelings rested inside, and my heart was strongly pumping. Suddenly we came to a bizarre clearing. The sounds of chanting native witch doctors filled the air. I saw dog heads that were dangling from a nearby cave entrance. There were piles of blooded skinned animals with their hearts cut out that were being prepared to burn in a raging fire. The priests were in a frenzy. The ritual had begun when all of a sudden, a bull was killed. The witch doctor slit its throat. Another man placed a large bowl under its neck to catch the bull's blood. Everyone bowed to the god of bull to honor his blood for the ritualism. They seemed to enjoy these morbid fantasies and animal tortures. Large amounts of rice and red peppers were prepared for a feast. Some men were sitting on blocks of wood or stones. Some were squatting. Everyone used their fingers to eat because there were no utensils. Each had a small clay bowl of rice. Then my father took a good jug and poured water on my head. My heart was pounding. After everyone had eaten their fill, naked men were dancing and chanting in the high places. High places are where people sacrifice to the god of the area and so become dwelling place of demonic spirits. God commands the children of Israel to demolish all their high places, Numbers 33:52. The demons watched and suddenly a shrill whistle pierced the air. A wave of terror raced throughout my body. Struggling for control, all of a sudden, I saw my father's face twist and become gnarly. Actually, he was being possessed by a gaudy spirit. When the spirit entered his body, father began to moan and shriek. Stark fear filled my mind when I saw him violently shake and writhe on the ground. Then his eyes became highly glazed. On the spur of the moment, he appeared to have an epileptic fit. All at once, he became entranced, passed out and fell to the ground. The demons were howling, hooting and laughing with glee. Abruptly, I felt my insides moving and tightening with terror but struggled to show no emotion. It was a hellish ordeal. A voice in my head said, "Be calm, you are learning." The dwarfs began to sing and dance near the fire. There was such a demonic gleam reflected in their faces. Watching from the bush, there were nebulous shadows lurking nearby. All at once, I heard a piercing scream that broke through the clouds of smoke. Goosebumps raced down my spine as I became very alert as the stench of burning flesh filled the night. Soon, the body of a young boy was cooked. The demons were in frenzy. My heart was beating furiously with fear. I hoped that soon it would be over. My young heart had not yet been demonized to a sufficient degree to see these evil matters. Ancient demon gods. Later, my father taught me about the ancient demon gods. These gods are worshipped by their priests that burn incense in the high places to the idol gods of the mountains of Ghana. They burn incense to Baal, the sun, the moon, and the planets to the hosts of heaven, he explained. As a Christian, now, I know that God calls them hosts of heaven gods. Lest thou lift up thine eyes unto heaven, and when thou sayest the sun, and the moon, and the stars, even all the host of heaven, shoulders be driven to worship them, and serve them, which the Lord thy God hath divided unto all nations under the whole heaven. Deuteronomy 4 verse 19. Thank God that the glorious gospel that transforms from darkness to light and from death to resurrection saved me. In fact, the gospel lives in the book of Galatians. The golden text of Paul's letter to the Galatians is found in these words, "I am crucified with Christ, nevertheless, I live, yet not I, but Christ lived in me, and the life which I now live in the flesh I live by the faith of the Son of God, who loved me, and gave himself for me." Galatians 2 verse 20. This of its own supernatural power is the one and only plan that God has ordained to save sinners. I was a sinner. I am saved by his wonderful grace. Chapter 4, Demonic Anointing. Wherefore, my dearly beloved, flee from idolatry. 1 Corinthians 10 verse 14. Inherited curses. Remember when my father told me the story of how he received the demonic powers from his father? The family members were doing their rituals, pouring out libations that make the dead body possess a demonic presence as it is laid in state. The rings and handkerchiefs that are given to the dead symbolize a covenant with the dead. When my grandfather died, the family had gathered for the funeral. The women were preparing food for the funeral, such as rice water, cocoa, tea, and soups. Family heads are aware of this ritual of preparing special waters named adakrom nsu. This is a concoction of ingredients so filthy, but added to the tea, cocoa, tea, soups, and others for consumption. It is demonic. The family puts on black garments for 3 to 6 months when bereaved. This invites the spirits of death to stay in the house for a long time. Of course, borrowed clothes for funerals will act as a method to transfer spirits. The mourners were chanting for the gods to descend and possess the worshippers, in which the ancestral spirits were invoked to give oracles and be a power in the household. My father told me my grandfather was lying in the black coffin and his eyes snapped opened. His eyes looked like slits similar to a python snake. They were sunken into his head. Really, it's a ghoulish idea. As father described, the mourners were screaming and wailing and pleading that the spirit of the deceased will enter safely into the spiritual world. The black magicians and witch doctors were working their rituals. Then all of a sudden, my grandfather was slowly getting into a sitting position. He swung his feet to the floor. He was in a total trance-like state with bulging glazed eyes. His arms were still waving as he stood up. Trembling, he began a staggering and stumbling manner of walking. Furthermore, the demons made his body walk around the room. Everyone in the room began weeping, wailing, and screaming in loud voices. Something supernatural was happening. Something is happening, very scary. Yet to his loved ones, it was eerie, but they thought it was quite wonderful. Awkwardly, moving unsteadily and lumbering across the room, the powers of darkness were in complete control of his body. "That's the spirit of voodoo," someone yelled. "Yes, it's the god of the graveyard," Baron Samedi, another exclaimed. "He's the devouring and lustful voodoo king of the cemetery spirits, spirit of death, and one of the more powerful spirits of the voodoo pantheon." At this time, my grandfather told my father that he wanted to pass his powers to him before he could pass on to the other world. He asked my father to bring 3 bowls to him. Then my grandfather vomited, filling the bowls. He commanded my father to drink it. My father obeyed. Then after my father drank it, my grandfather lay back in the casket and father was empowered with his spirits. Grandfather's mantle had passed to my father. Voodoo powers. The word voodoo comes from the word vodun, meaning god, spirit, or sacred object, in the Fon language of West Africa. Voodoo is a system focusing on a distant god known as the Grand Master, who manifests through various rituals. He has a pantheon of demons, such as benevolent ones invoked by Nada rites and harsher demons invoked by Bloody Petro rites. It consists primarily of the worship of ancestors and a hierarchy of gods. These demons seek to manifest themselves by taking possession of their worshippers during their frenzied dances. These ancestral spirit deities are known collectively as Loe. A major voodoo philosophy is, take care of the gods and they will take care of you. Accordingly, during the voodoo ceremonies, the chief Bab, short for Babalawo, or priest, drinks human blood and chants, and dances savagely, which may continue for days on end. The initiate collapses and will fall into trances. Then possession takes place by these demons. In this altered state of consciences, the possessing demon may manifest itself and begin to speak, sing or curse, as well as offer advice or cure the sick. Whenever the demon that has descended and entered their bodies possessed by voodoo worshippers, they usually shriek or howl. Some violently shake or writhe, as if experiencing an epileptic fit. On the spur of the moment, the possessed person will become entranced. He will pass out and fall to the ground. While in the trance, by the power of demons, some worshippers walk over broken glass or burning coals. Others place their hands in burning oil or alcohol. Voodoo advocates vow that if worshippers show no bodily harm after such practices, it means that demons have entered into their bodies. in Africa, which doctors really can create zombies who are also known as the living dead. They are not fictional. The dead body has a blank glassy stare, a plastic face, filled with terror, and slow lumbering movement like a puppet. The voodoo belief is that a spirit can then be made to obey, mechanically, the wishes of the voodoo priest. He can, through demonic possession, reanimate a corpse. People are very scared of voodoo power. Some of the voodoo symbols are such things as fetishes, icons, and voodoo dolls. Other symbols are to protect the wearer against poisoning, death hexes, evil spirits, sickness, injury and accidents. Voodoo is an occult religion rooted in Satanism. Tempting possession is also tempting serious spiritual risk. My father taught me how to prepare the food for the living dead. "Vagalas, you must not eat the food yourself," father advised. "Remember that your grandfather died during the last moon. He watches me every minute and I will never forget him. He will eat this food." "So, you think my grandfather is one of the living dead?" I asked my father as I stirred the yams and eggs together. "Yes," father answered firmly. "He may be invisible to you, but that doesn't mean that he and other ancestors aren't watching over what we do. Your grandfather will be watching over you too. He tells me that you are his pride and joy. When he finished building his altar, he filled his bowl with rice, beans, seeds, a lizard, and 3 snails. He was satisfied with his task. He sat under the shade of a mango tree and watched me finish filling my bowl." Training with father. My father told me, "Son, you want to be powerful in the spiritual realms, so you will have to know these demons from the bush, sky, and the sea." We started. We met those demons that are in charge of marriages. If a Christian is married and the church has not blessed that marriage, the demons have an open door. If a Christian goes to the witch doctor for help, the door is open for demonic control. The demons can manipulate, intimidate, suppress, oppress, and destroy. Then there are demons in charge of cancer and diabetes. I learned how to work with these powers of evil. However, during this time, I didn't know that a day was coming that I would stand in front of the people of God to expose these demons. I just thought that I was learning to become very powerful like my father. When the Lord called me to reveal the reality of these evil powers to his church, Jesus told me, "Many demons have my church and my people blinded. I am anointing you to expose the demons, and you must tell my church how to defeat these demons and protect themselves." Chapter 5, The City Under the Sea. "Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea! For the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time." Revelation 12 verse 12. Introduction to Sea Spirits. Know that many will not believe this testimony concerning the city under the sea. They, in fact, will want to believe that it is just a fairy tale. They will try comparing it to something like the stories of The Little Mermaid or The Wizard of Oz. Believe me, the city under the sea does spiritually exist. I know, because I personally spent 12 years under the sea and knew that it's a real place. This is my testimony of residing with the demon gods under the sea. Powerful testimony. My spiritual transformation. Finally, the time came that my father took me to the sea where he got most of his power. This was a gate to a city under the sea where people get gifts for wizardry. Seagulls were swirling across the gentle waves. The setting sun was a hazy circle behind the grey clouds dipping beyond the horizon. The skyline was marked by the shading between the grey-blue of the sea and the blue-grey of the sky. Suddenly the sun sank out of sight. The moonlit night darkened. I felt the restless splendor of the sea. I sensed hundreds of eyes that may or may not be human silently watching from the waves. Finding a rock half in and half out of the water, we climbed upon it to rest. For a moment, I watched the little creatures of the deep as they leaped free of the pull of the tide. Then, in the distance, I saw a form that rose from the crest of the waves. Sea foam crowning his green-dark hair, his hands were raised above his head. He seemed to stand for a moment on his tail. In one instant, with a great splash, he disappeared into the depths of the sea. Wow! Did you see him, Father? Yes, "Vagalas," replied my father. "He's called a merfolk, and there are mermaids too. They are scattered throughout seas around the world. Most people who have seen them believe that they are just imaginations, but they are actually spirits in one of their many forms. This is the beginning of a great adventure. Here you will meet the spirits of the sea." Then my father gave me one of his powerful potions. His eyes were glazed, shimmered like small sea lights, then turned glassy as the potions began to take effect. I began to feel airy. This form of entrance into a fantasy world is enhanced through drugs or potions, especially the hallucinogenic kind. These drugs are so effective in transporting a person through the spirit world that they are highly sought after by witches and wizards worldwide. May the Lord Jesus Christ enlighten your understanding and guide you in His ways. Your support helps us spread these stories to a wider audience.